Alrighty then. Welcome to McFarland's Corner. I'm Michael McFarland, your host of McFarland's Corner and the Lake Fork Fishing Guide. You can visit my website at two different places, thelakeforkguide.com or mcfarlandfishing.com if you want to learn a little more about me. But McFarland's Corner is kind of a weekly show, periodic show, I should say, where I talk about Lake Fork. I talk about the journal, which is McFarland's Fishing. And I usually pick a topic of some sort to specifically talk in depth about. So with that being said, to any newcomers, anybody that's a follower, good to see you. Got a pretty cool little lesson tonight. We're going to talk tonight about topwaters in general, and the up-and-coming shad spawn, which is now and right around the corner the next few weeks. So that'll be tonight's topic. Before we do get into that topic, are you ready for it? So I really want to bring up one of the first things that I recognize I do a lot, which is a tip of the week. We do tip of the week here in McFarland's Corner, and I want to start with that. One of my biggest tips that I can tell any fisherman, certainly who's trying to make a living doing this, but just even the avid fisherman. I know it's hard when you're only weekend fishing, but the more you can look ahead, the more you can have early preparation, the more you can be ready for what's coming instead of scrambling around, having to run to the tackle shops and spend last minute dollars. So early preparation is my tip of the week. A great example is I'd like to give a big shout out to Santone Lures, the up and coming jig bite that we have, the 3/4 ounce or 1 ounce jig bite that happens, post spawn, May, June, and into early summer. Is just one of the best bites I experienced on this lake. It's a deep bite. It's anywhere from 14 to 28 feet in those deeper shell beds. It's my specialty out offshore in deep water. And but I just received my Santone stuff. Thank you, Santone, for all the support. I'm looking forward to catching them big old slouches on some of them jigs here in the next few weeks as well. So tip of the week, early preparation. Make sure that you're looking ahead. Make sure you got the hooks, you got the line, you got the right things that you need, and specifically baits. You're not last minute ordering. All right. Journal. Man, I haven't talked to you in a few weeks, so the fishing's just been a roller coaster. You can do a little bit of everything out there. I've chose to kind of stay away from the crowds, which the crowds are bed fishing, for a lot of good reason, ethical reasons. I just was able to find a downstairs bite that was consistent enough that I don't like to bed fish that much. Not that I can't do it. I just don't like putting two clients on one bed fish at a time. They've got to really be abundant and easy to catch. And sometimes it's real frustrating. So I haven't made many days out of bed fishing this year at all. Shown a client or two, a few beds. But in general, most of what we've been doing is riding up and down weather. The cool trend, warm trend, which we're kind of out of now. But now it's been high winds and rain, floods, the gates opening and closing. Gates opening and closing are probably a bigger influence on the lake. But just to give you kind of an idea, the main bite that I've had has still been staying with those shallow shell beds. I've been throwing the impact shad, the big one, the 7-inch impact shad, green pumpkin magic, chartreuse pepper. If the water clears up enough, I would go to like the disco green or the disco violet. But I basically am chartreusing the tail, and I'm running it on a sea rig in 3 or 4 feet of water. A lot of people, when they get with me, they're kind of saying, why do we do it that way? Well, in essence, what a sea rig is giving you an opportunity to do is fish a weightless rig bait down deep. That's the idea of sea rig. Well, why am I throwing it in 3 or 4 feet of water? A lot of reasons. I'm fishing the rougher water, the wind-blown shell beds. I want longer casts, and in the wind and in those conditions, you can't just fish the weightless. If I could fish it just weightless, it would be applicable. But at that point, the wind would not be there. The presence of the fish may not be there either in the calmer water. So that's why I'm throwing it Carolina rig style. I usually throw it on a 3/4 ounce round head, and really gets to clunk through the shells as well. So not only do I have the ability to throw the bait in the rougher wind, the rougher water, but I'm banging and clunking, making a lot of noise. We pulled a shell out of deep water the other day. I did put it on Instagram, picture of it, and it had a hole in one side of it. I'm speculating here, but it came from a deep hole where I dragged 3/4 ounce jigs and 1 ounce jigs uphill. And I wouldn't be surprised if one of those jigs knocked that hole in that mussel. Big mussel with a big hole in it. We probably do that quite a bit when we're really fishing those deep, dense shell beds with those big, heavy lead jigs. But anyways, back to the journal. Sticking with the journal. The KFC rig's been my main deal. The numbers have been great. Haven't had a lot of big fish. They're just in the main lake. Still haven't really come in. There's been a wave or two. A few weeks back, we did have a big sack, and we've had some random 6, 7, and 8 pound fish. But the really big fish in the middle of the lake, the main basin, they're up and moving now. They're spawning now. So, I'm also going to those backwaters and throwing frogs. I love just a simple green leopard frog, white belly. Just a simple. The sprout frogs are probably my favorite. But this is, I'm not even sure what type this is. It's just a leopard frog with a white belly. I really like the white, and of course the yellow is the key on fork a lot of times, that yellow. But in that backwater, we've been flooded. The water comes up, the fish come in. The gates open, the water starts to drop, the fish pull back out. So in amongst that, I've been covering a lot of water with a buzz bait, a gold buzz bait. The water's pretty dingy. Gold clacker type buzz bait, black preferred. And I don't run any stinger trailer unless I'm missing the fish. It just catches more garbage. I'm really throwing that is in the garbage, around the garbage, behind the garbage, as shallow as I can possibly get it. A lot of the fish, when the water's rising, are literally in just inches of water. You see when they come after the bait, you see their back come out of the water. Some of the other ways McFarland's fishing's been fishing, a little bit of weightless. So a little bit of weightless flukes in the back. The impact, I go down to the smaller one, the 3.5 inch impact. I mix up a couple different colors there, chartreuse pepper, the disco green, and of course the green pumpkin magic or even watermelon red in the backwater. I also really, in that backwater, am sticking with larger baits. I know those females are in there too, cruising, looking potentially even on the beds. So I'm throwing the big Cinco. This is the 7-inch Cinco. I think they call it the 9X Cinco from Yamamoto. I throw it on an 8-odd hook. A lot of times I'll throw that weightless or pegged really lightweight with just an 1/8 ounce tungsten. So that's another way McFarland fishing's been fishing in the backwaters. One of my favorites in the backwaters is to kind of, I want to say I'm burning it, but not necessarily. Fishing it real fast, and this is a Santone swim jig. This is one of the heavier versions. I believe it's a 7/8. I'm sorry, a 7/8, that would be too heavy. A 5/8. So it's the largest heavy version that they have. And I really got to move it in that shallow water. I usually will run it where those weed guards right there are buzzing, sticking out of the water by just about 1/4 inch, and the bait is at the surface. My favorite color, mean green. I tip it with a lot of different trailers, but this particular trailer, the Kitech or the Smash Tech, Smash Junior Shad, that right there is the perfect way to run that bait. And I'll also throw it in other colors, brim colors, crawfish colors. When I do the other colors, I tend to put a twin tail instead of a single tail. So if I've got the JC Craw, for example, I will put the Rage Craw twin tail in Falcon Craw. If I'm throwing the swim jig in Pake's perch, then I'm going to do the same with a green pumpkin dual trailer. And then of course I mentioned I'm not McFarland's fishing we're not really bed fishing that much. Occasionally, again, I'm hitting them. I'm fishing some of the shallow water with just a speed worm or even a speed craw, lightweight peg deal. If we see a bed fish, this works just fine. We can toss them, tantalize the fish, and if it's locked, it goes pretty quick. If it's not locked, it's not really worth it to me to waste the time. I'm not downgrading it. There's a lot of big fish are caught that way. I've done it. I've done it in California and Arizona until I was blue in the face. In fact, I've done it with clients. I've done it in deep water, and I'm fixing to show you what's called a flogger that we used to do this with. This is a flogger. It's got a glass front, little handles to submerge, and a place to put your eyes. And when those bedfish are deep in real clear water, California lakes, Arizona lakes, when they're as deep as 20 feet or more sometimes, you hang over the boat, and one guy's really like a spotter while the other guy's dropping over him, and you're literally telling your buddy, move it to the left, move it to the right, get ready, she's going to eat it. It's at the hook. It's really exciting. My point of sharing that is I've done bed fishing until I was blue in the face, was really good at the West Coast. Been here 6 years and just really haven't even made any efforts to make much of it. Kind of old enough now to leave the bed fish alone. But that is the gist of McFarland's Fishing, the journal, right here on McFarland's Corner. Pretty good fishing, very consistent. Not as many big ones as I like, but they're coming. They're coming more up my alley here in the post spawn bite. And we're going to start talking about that. Top waters, the up and shad coming spawn, that up and coming shad spawn, that's incredible. That's a great way to catch a lot of big fish too. So before we get into the topic, product of the week. Guys, you know, I'm always talking about some kind of product in the fishing business as a product of the week. And I'm going to surprise you this week. As fishermen, we need to eat. And so, you know, I thought, you know, maybe this week I'll do something a little different and talk about one of the places that I've eaten at this week. Well, it worked out perfect. My clients, on Tuesday, we broke the trolling motor and decided to cut the day in half. And we went to the Boneyard Barbecue. Okay, yes, Boneyard Barbecue in Emory, which used to be called the old Circle H. And, you know, when I first moved here, everybody talks about Texas barbecue. And you know what? Texas got some darn good barbecue. There's no doubt about it. Circle H was really good at first. And over the few years here, I kind of either got bored with it or it went downhill a little bit. And the owner was a little tired, rightfully so. Been here a long time. But listen, new ownership blew my mind. They still have most of everything they had before, but it's fresher, newer, new product line. So the meat's a little bit different, better, I think. New rib line. It's not the same distributor. And, of course, new owners. So I want to give a shout out to the new owners. It was really a surprise when I ordered the poor boy and my clients ordered ribs. And I was drooling over the ribs that they served. So I went back 2 days later to get me some. And they were just as good as I thought. But shout out to Jerry. I think it's Bisbee, the new owner. Tanya, the cooks, Josh, Sam, Wendy, Justin. You guys are doing a really, really phenomenal job, and that place has stepped it up a notch. I guarantee I'll be eating there. That's the product of the week. The Boneyard Barbecue right there in Emory. Get you some. I think they still have steaks and all that stuff, and if they've upped all if they've upped the service on the steaks as well, you're missing out if you don't give them a try. All right, folks. This is McFarland's Corner. We're going to get into the topic of the week. Okay? Topic of the week, top waters. All right. I'm going to kind of go through fast-paced, faster than I normally am on some of the basic stuff, but I want to highlight some important stuff. So when we talk about poppers, a popper has the cut lip. It's something that plunges, plunge through the water. Well, a popper can be used to walk as well. A lot of times it has to do with the technique that you're going about how you pop it, and it also can be in the knot that you choose to tie. So there's a few different knots that can be used. A loop knot is okay. It's a weak knot. It's not the best. If you will Google the king sling knot, it's a knot used in the ocean. It's a stronger knot. They use it on big jerk baits, large jerk baits. And it's really a very, very strong loop knot, double down loop knot. But the king sling tied on a frog or in front of a popper will really let you walk it. I tie a king sling with all my jerk baits because I just get that real wide turn, very simple. I don't have to work as hard. Okay, so keeping that in mind, with the poppers, you know, we can just go right down the list and we can talk about simple Rebel poppers. We can talk about Lucky Craft poppers. We can talk about on and on and on. What I will tell you that makes a difference for me in a popper, now let me just get you a simple popper here. I know I have just a simple, I guess I don't have a Rebel popper in here. What I've got in here is a Rico, a Yellow Magic. I've got some River to Seas. These are all in the popper family. Okay. I've got some Rebels. And it looks like I have some mollusks, okay? And so what I want to really talk about is in the popper family, you know, a KVD basically would be a Bass Pro XPS popper is a great popper. A Rebel popper is a great popper. I can assure you that a Rico or Yellow Magic or potentially some of these more customized topwaters can and will outfish those basic poppers. Those old school poppers had their day, but a Rico or Yellow Magic has a patented cup. Okay, it's the degree of the cup, and they typically spit, make a different sound, and they move a certain amount of water. Water displacement and sound is why they're so much more successful than the average popper. That cupping is what's patent. What you'll find is there's not a whole lot of difference in them, but there's a whole lot of difference in the action on the water. So keeping that in mind, poppers are poppers. One will outfish the other. Keep your shad colors and your patterns and colors correct. Okay, your light some stuff on clear water, your darker colors in dirtier, dingier water, lower light conditions. More importantly, keep your profile. The profile is what's the most important thing. If they're eating 2-inch shad, they're eating the smaller shad, and you are throwing a giant 5-inch shad, okay? They're eating a little 2-inch profile, and you're throwing a large profile. You may not get as many strikes, or any strikes for that matter, if they're really keyed in on profile. So always just keep in mind with the poppers, pace, there's always a cadence. It may be a 1-2-1. It may be having a long pause somewhere in it. It may be not. It may be just a 1-2-1, 1-2-1, 1-2-1 the whole way back, like a walking bait. So always remember some versatileness in how you fish, and don't be afraid on Lake Fork to throw some big ones, okay? I was down at Bacharach when I was about, I don't know, probably 17, 18 years old, and they were breaking out some huge topwaters, much bigger than this, and catching huge 8, 9, 10-pound bass, just like toilet flushes. So never, ever be afraid to break out. This right here is a river to sea. It's called a bubble pop. It's got some holes in the side, so it really makes a lot of bubbles. It spits. That's a really big, loud, annoying bait that the largemouths really, when they're fired up, they're on them shad, that can get them real good. All right, so that's kind of the gist of the popper. I don't think you learned anything super special there, but there are great times to be fishing that, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit, like the shad spawn, okay? We'll put that over there for the shad spawn. Next down my list, which is really fun, and I'm going to make sure I just put some check marks on some of this so that I know I've done it like I wanted to, guys. And I hope you are enjoying. We're going to get to some really cool information here in a little bit when we get into shad spawn that I promise you probably haven't heard or thought about. So when we get into walking baits, I kind of look at them the same way. There are so many baits on the market these days. It's how do I choose one or two, aside from experience in fishing, that works better or different. So again, your walking baits, the most common are the spooks. Okay, you have your Zara spook, the Zara spook, the Zara spook Junior. Okay, and one of my favorites, this big old boy right here, the Saltwater Spook. Okay, Saltwater Spook, even for 2 and 3 pound bass in Lake Mead, it's one of the favorite ways. Good loud noise calls him up. Okay, big profile at the surface. That's the most common. And people say a stick bait, a walking bait. Well, there's a lot of different versions of stick baits and walking baits. Okay, my favorite, personally, my favorite is a Vixen. Okay, a Vixen has a very, very special sound. You can't get them anymore than eBay, but the Vixen calls up a bigger strike more often than not. A Sammy, Lucky Craft Sammy. Okay, when you stop walking, this thing sinks straight down like this and sits straight up. Pardon me. Again, another bigger bite producer. Okay, I can fish the KVD XPS and catch fish on it all day long. I can switch off of the KVD XPS and go to the Vixen and get a much, much bigger bite, much bigger fish. Okay, I've seen this time and time again. This isn't anything new. Any experienced fisherman will say the same thing. I can take the numbers real well off of Zara Spook and switch up to an evergreen splashback. I believe it's SB 125. Okay, which by the way, this is one of my favorite of all times. Okay, there are a lot of reasons why. Number one, it's well shaped. Okay, it's like a torpedo in the back. It's weighted in the back, so it long casts. It just flies like a bullet. Okay, it is so well balanced that it walks real easy, and it's the only walking topwater that I'm aware of that spits really, really consistently. Okay, great hooks. Comes out of Japan. That's the Evergreen SB 125. Awesome, awesome topwater. Awesome walker. So where I'm trying to stray you away from is just being locked into that simple Zara Spook when someone says a walking topwater. Okay, there's a wide variety of them. Another one of my personal favorites on fork is the Ima. This is made by Ima. This is Ima's Big Stick. Okay, it's very similar to shape to the Evergreen SB 125, but it's larger. It's much larger. In fact, it's almost two of them. It's a very large bait, and it walks and spits as well. Very challenging to work this bait on the water. The water's got to be perfect. If you have too much riff, it really doesn't work that well. But again, you don't always have to just throw the Zara Spook. Okay, you can mix it up. There's a lot of different walking baits, including even customized walking baits. This is a balsa wood shad. Beautiful job, beautiful done. In fact, I'll take this out of the package for you to just show you. Beautiful paint job. It's made out of balsa wood. It's got a nice little walking lip. Very simple to walk. Floats high in the water. And this is made right here by C&K Lure Design. So you can look them up. You can get some of their stuff. It looks like they're made out of Arkansas, but that's a customized bait. So I wanted to add some flavor for you so that you weren't just hearing the same old poppers and walkers. Okay, there's a lot more to take a look at. There's even more out there in the market. All right. So that takes care of the walkers. All right, now how about the buzz type? You know, the real common buzz type would be to say a buzz bait. That's definitely a top water. And it has its place. And during any time of year, a buzz bait can work, even in cold water. By the way, before I go into this next little phase, was just going to be about the buzzing type of topwaters. An old timer used to always say to me, "Hey, Mike, you know the best time for topwater?" And when I was young, I never answered it right, but he'd tell me anytime. You never know when a big old bass is willing to come up on topwater. I can tell you he's right. I can tell you that I've certainly narrowed things down. When we have this kind of weather, we have rain. Right after rain, there's nothing better than a popper fished real slow. A bone popper fished after the rain, during the rain. Big fish, big fish. A lot of times they won't even bust it. They just come up in real light kiss, suck it down. Same thing, spawners. If you know where there's a bed fish and you couldn't get her to bite, that next morning you can long cast a popper to that area, try and get where you saw her on that bed, and she will come up a lot of times and kiss that baby. She won't blow up on it. She just sucks it in real light. It's really cool. Little experience tip there for you. All right, let's get into the buzz type. The buzz type has become really popular lately. We've gotten into what we call the whopper plopper. So the whopper plopper has, man, it's like a turbo boat when you reel that thing. If you reel it too fast, it's just that. It's just too fast. It's too much for me anyways. The whopper plopper is very dangerous. I prefer the bone. That bone right there on Lake Fork, when they're willing to eat it, they crush it, okay? But again, it's equal to a buzz bait. It's just got a body, casts some country mile, makes a whole bunch of noise. I can tell you a couple of tips. Fish it really, really slow. So far, everything that I've learned about that, the whopper plopper is the slower that you can make that like it's dying, just clap, clap, instead of brrr. The slower you can make that and pause it sometimes, you'll get more bites. In the buzz category, aside from buzz baits and buzz frogs, there are a few other specialty baits that I really like. River to Sea makes this guy right here, and if I can read right, this is like the Tango Prop, I think they call it. It's propped in front and back. It's very much kind of like the old rip baits, something like the old Devil Horse, things like that. It's got props in the front and the back, and you're really ripping it, zip, zip, zip. That's one of my favorites. You can really draw a lot of attention, catch a lot of fish that way. On fork, I have. And then my personally favorite is a combination of a buzz bait / wake bait. And this is the Depths. I believe this is the Buzz Jet, but it's the larger Buzz Jet. And I fish this a lot here at Fork during the shad spawn specifically. I prefer the smaller version during the thread fin shad spawn. But this bait right here is awesome. The Buzz Jet is a combination wake bait / buzz bait. It'll get you bit by them big girls on this lake specifically. All right, so quickly kind of burning through the top waters of buzz category. Then we're going to get into soft baits. Now we're going to get into the soft baits. And again, you know where I'm going. It's pretty much frogs. You've got a multitude type of frogs. You have the popping frog. This is a spro popping frog, so it's got a cupped lip for popping. I prefer a yellow bottom and a white bottom. And then you've got your grass frogs, which will go through the junk a little bit better. These can be walkers as well. It takes a little bit of technique to make them walk, and the loop knot or the king sling knot so that you have the extra opening and that looseness in the front to walk it. So with the frogs, you know, I'm gonna give up one of my secrets. Everybody knows that these bass love orange and red and that Rayburn red, and that if you'll get you that bronze, you get you the bronze spro frog right there. They eat that on fork a lot. You don't have to throw the white or the green. You can really stick with that. It's the right natural colors to the earth tones, and that's one of my best secrets I'm giving up right there. But anyways, with the frogs, you know, man, it's always a hero or zero bite for me. It has a one day really good, you get a whole bunch of blow-ups and they eat it real well, and the next day they don't. The frogs, soft bait, stuff like that, they are making some soft fish type baits. Here's one here that you can also use as top waters in that backwater like frog. There was another one that I had. I can't remember what it was. It was a 10X stretchable little popper, plastic popper. Soft baits, your soft trending stuff. Man, I'm telling you, it's hero or zero. They can hit it one day and not eat it the next, blow up on it and just simply knock it out of their area the next. And that's that typical frog bite. Okay, anything special or unique? Is there any other top waters that I had that were special or unique? I think I kind of covered them. There are some crazy baits. I do not have anything in hand, but you can go look online and you can see some of these crazy top waters that Japan's producing, walking things. They look prehistoric. I don't get too carried away in that. I stick with the basics, but I do have the honed out better baits. Your Yellow Magics, your Ricos, your Evergreen Japan products, the Vixen. Can't beat the Spook. It's one of the mainstays in the top water business. And guys, that kind of buttons up this part of the topic of top water. All right, if you guys have any questions about so far, please put them below. If you're enjoying it, give me some thumbs up or likes below anyways, and I really appreciate you sticking in there. Now we're going to get into a little more learning curve here. We're going to talk more about directly what's beginning to happen now and what's coming in the next few weeks. It's the thread fin shad spawn. So when the water reaches the 60s, all right, and I don't just mean the subsurface. All right, so when we talk about water temperatures, a lot of times we say, hey, the water hit 59 today. That's the subsurface. I mean, when I say 60s, I mean when the water column, the first 10-foot water column is in the 60s. Okay, so let's just say mid-60s on the subsurface and 60s in the first 10 feet of water. That's when you're going to experience the shad spawn. Usually happens more around the full moon. You'll see much more shad spawn during the full moon. Doesn't have to have that. They're going to spawn regardless. So where does this happen? Right, it happens, when does it happen? When the water reaches mid-60s, let's just say. 60s and mid-60s. Where does it happen? It happens specifically on harder bottoms and mostly on points next to deep water. On fork, specifically, a lot of where you see the red clay and you see the bluffs, It's kind of a no-brainer. You can follow the birds. You're going to see the blue herrings and the white lyres and the seagulls and all those birds chasing that shad spawn because they're shallow and they're easy to catch. Just imagine all the birds are chasing it from the air. The bass are chasing it from behind or underneath in the water. Okay, so these are really great places to locate them. Main lake points, secondary points. You know what's really ironic is, as a guide, we get to be on the lake day in, day out. And you know, very grateful to do so. Thank you, Lord, for putting me in that position. We also get to see things. We see the water drop. And it just clicked to me that all of these areas on Fork specifically that I see the shad spawn happen every year, the threadfin shad spawn happen, are the small clam beds. We don't really fish them. I don't make much of the shallow little clam. It's about the size of a silver dollar, smaller, a nickel even. But it's not a coincidence that the shad are spawning in those same runs, in those same harder bottom red clay areas where we see all those dead white clams. Now, that's not the mussel that I'm talking about, the shell bed mussel that I'm talking about. It's not the same thing, but pretty unique. The shad spawn happens in those red clays, and when the water drops, all you see in front of those red clays are those little tiny shells. Again, I know I talk about shell beds a lot and shell a lot. If the lake was full of grass, I would talk about grass. It's not, and the shell is the replacement. It's how they use the lake, okay? It's how the lake evolves. The life of the lake evolves based on that. Okay, so we got the when, we got the where. You know, you'll see it happen too, by the way. A lot of times early morning, the first 30 minutes to an hour, a cloudy day, it'll go longer. And a lot of times, you know, that's your main lake point stuff. So early and late in the evening, you'll see it get going again. There are shad spawns in the backs of the creeks, the edges of the grass. I mean, that can happen because of the grass, because those places have grass. That can happen all day. And as long as you see them teeming and flickering around the edges of the grass, you can sure as bet that you'll be able to catch some fish by them. Okay, we'll talk about some ways to do that in just a minute. So how long does it last? You know, typically it depends. Depends on when it kicks off and how fast and how Mother Nature is. Just like anything, Mother Nature can make it super fast by heating things up super fast and you know, bringing them up just right before a full moon and heating things up and they just get it done quick. Or Mother Nature can elongate it out. So typically just a few weeks, a couple of moon phases maximum. So no more than a month, maybe one full moon to the next full moon. I think that's what we're going to have here. We have some happening now. Full moon has just happened. And new moon, full moon, we won't see any shad spawn by the first part of May. I mean, by the middle of May, I just don't expect it. So that's going to happen pretty quick, but we should at least over the next 2 or 3 weeks see this happen right here at Lake Fork. All right, how to fish. Some of the things we talked about, topwaters. There's nothing better than a yellow magic on Lake Fork. Match the hatch. If it's small bait, smaller size, larger bait, larger size, sometimes just a bigger bite, larger size regardless. A variety of topwaters. I like a walker still because I can move it quickly. If a fish misses it, I can really keep it moving and fire up a school potentially. So I will bounce back and forth. Maybe I get the fish triggered off with the walking bait and then stick with the popper for a better thorough presentation, slower, being able to slow down. I got to get them worked up sometimes first. So that's where I'm with the topwater. Square bills. Man, square bills are a great search bait, period. It's perfect bait. It's a moving bait. A lot of times on these points, I'm going to start with a small. If it's clear water, I want more natural. This is just a KVD Strike King. This right here is a Lucky Craft. This is the small Lucky Craft. If I can read this morning, this should be the 1.5 Rick Clun. So most of the time the threadfin shad are smaller, so I am going small. Colors are typically greenback. You know, in the dirtier water, I may end up going to, believe it or not, a red. If the water's real dirty, the shad's still going to be there spawning. But I'll run that black and red in that dirty water. And I'm never afraid to step up to a 2.5 on Fork. Sometimes I'll even step up to the 8.0. It just depends on how big a fish I think are there. So a square bill is another great way. Awesome search bait. You can cover a lot of water real fast, okay? Soft flukes, really hard to beat. During the shad spawn, I will spend more time throwing this little guy right here, this 3.5-inch impact shad in disco green or disco violet. I wish that Mark Pack would make it in just pearl. I don't know why it's not in just plain pearl. It really should be. But really hard to beat just a simple soft fluke on those points and near those shad when they're spawning. That's going to get you bit. Light line, fluorocarbon sinking line, maybe 16-pound test, and fish slow, that you will catch those fish fishing with a weightless fluke around shad spawn. Okay, wacky worms, we all know what those are. Cincos, we all know what those are. Again, don't overfish, match the hatch. Okay, you don't want larger bait when you're on small bait. You don't want smaller bait when you're on larger bait. So just kind of pay real attention when you're on those shad spawn, what size bait, how big a volume, and what's really happening there. Okay, always can never ever outs the chatterbait that time of year. All right, it's a big fish catcher. A chatterbait or a spinnerbait, for me, the chatterbait has really taken the spinnerbait away from me. I'd just rather throw the chatterbait. I'm sure that there's probably some times that I should be throwing the spinnerbait more often than I do, but I prefer the jackhammer, and then the trailer would be like an LFT Live Magic Shad. This is the larger 4.5. I always prefer the bigger profile, but the smaller profile does fine. It gets bit a little more often. But that bigger profile with my chatterbait is how we catch a lot of big fish in the next few weeks via the shad spawn on Lake Fork. Last but not least, this is one that superiorly gets overlooked. I forget about it. I don't know why. I tend to just forget, and it's so simple to do, and it's perfect for any beginners or clients, and that's the underspin. When you're around the shad spawn, there's nothing easier to cast and wind. Cast and wind. It's weedless. Just chuck it out there and wind it back. Variance on speeds. You may try fast. You may speed it up and slow it down. You may just high stick it slow. But this will get bit. It's got that flashy swimmer deal hanging. It's going to get you bit. During the shad spawn, again, I watch the profiles. I got a larger size. I watch the colors depending on the water clarity. Clearer the water, the more natural and the more iridescent. The dirtier the water, the more solid the colors, the more white or dark colors that I go to. Really hard to beat the underspins. And then here's where I'm going. By the way, those are smash tail. It's a smash tail junior. That's an underspin with a smash tail junior. And that's underspin with the smash tail. Okay. Kitek's another good bait. I prefer the Smash Tech. Smash Tech products are made right here in USA by one of our wardens. Thank you, Heath Taylor, for what you do. And now we're going to talk about what I tend to overlook. Years and years ago, we used to throw a lot of hollow belly baits. A lot. And it got real old because most hollow bellies, they were hollow all the way through. So by the time you fish with it for any amount of time, 15, 20, 30 minutes, it was already having trouble, falling down, wasn't staying right. So underspins and hollow bellies just never mixed very well. That bait would start falling down, and just give you nothing but a nightmare. Well, I can tell you now that this new hollow belly made by Smash Tech Lures with a solid head, the first 1 inch is solid, okay? That makes the biggest difference in the world. It stays on that bait. It stays up where it's supposed to be on the hook or on the screw lock. And I overlooked it last year. But as a underspin, weedless, or open hook, it's really hard to beat that hollow belly during the shad spawn. And the reason why is a lot of these other baits will work really good. This underspin with the Smash Tech tail it's got a thumping tail behind it, okay? But it doesn't have any body undulation. Right? The underspin here has body undulation, okay? Vibration, huge vibration. It actually will thump your rod as much or more than the chatterbait, okay? It's a deeper dunk, 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 okay? So I'm not going to forget it this year. The underspins with the hollow belly Smash Tech, the small size, the large size, and then the swag shad. The swag shad, we're kind of beyond a little bit for me. I missed it during the gizzard shad spawn, but I don't really want to say I missed it because the water was just never clear enough for me to get my mind around throwing swim baits. Probably could have been throwing swim baits this year. Probably could have been throwing glide baits that made a little more noise. But again, the water never cleared up enough for me to get that bite going. So I stuck with what we had going. All right. So, guys, if there's any questions on any of that, that is kind of the shad spawn in a nutshell. I'm going to close up on that topic. If you have any questions, put them below. If you enjoyed it, give me some likes below. I'll try and get back to you on any questions if you have them. All right. So what's next? I always talk about being in front of the fish. Tonight we had the little tip of early preparation. I've already talked about getting my jigs ready for the post-spawn bite. We're talking about what's next in this threadfin shad spawn. So what's next is the threadfin shad spawn. Mike is still already processing beyond that. All right. The next bite after that is my most favorite. All right. I have a few openings left in May. There's a lot in June. There's only a handful in May. Guys, listen, 2 to 3 weeks of the shad spawn, and then it's the deep water post. All right. The deep water post spawn bite on fork is off the chain. All right. They pile up. You get a whole bunch of big fish. They're not spread out trying to catch big fish. We've got them on honey holes. And we make a milk run throwing 10XD crankbaits, the jig bite, which is my specialty, and that deep water is my specialty. So I'm already prepared for that. I gave a shout out once to Santone. I'm going to give it again. Santone lures. I'm getting ready to make probably 2 months worth of fishing of nothing but Santone jigs, Santone shaky heads, offshore deep shell beds. That's the next that I'm preparing for already. Put some jigs together, put some shaky heads together. I'm getting the right stuff out, the rods, the right line. I'm ready for that bite just after we experience the shad spawn. So listen, the summary really quick. Always prepare, anticipate, and expect what's coming. If you anticipate, prepare, expect, and attack, you will succeed more often. All right. Listen, guys, again, some bookings are open. April's full. May's got a few. If you're really interested, you better hit me up now because they're going to go away quick. That's going to roll into June. June's got openings, and it'll be an awesome beginning to the summer. I appreciate you watching. I'm Michael McFarland, the host of McFarland's Corner. As always, wishing you the very, very best fishing. Hope someone catches a big one. Thank you for watching.